in a solid and we animated that solid. This time I'm just going to animate some text. So I'm going to right click and go to new and click on text. And so now this is going to open up, I have this new layer. It doesn't have anything in it yet because I haven't typed any text. So I'm just going to type some text. We're working with emotion, so I will type happy. And I'll put in a little smiley face. And so once we have this text here, you can see the character section opens up and we have some options here. So this is like Photoshop. If I want to change, I have to have this text selected. So I can double click on it or hit Command A to select it. And then I can make it bigger by increasing the font size. And I can, let's see, change the font face. I'll use this cool Herculanum font. And the font face has some options. I can change the color of the text, like let's change it to, my background is blue, so let's do like orange. I can add a stroke if I want. Maybe add like a black stroke or maybe a white stroke. Although I don't see stroke width because I can't really see the stroke. Wonder if that's hidden somewhere. Let's see. Okay, I don't see that. Maybe we'll find it later. Oh, here it is. Okay, so I can increase the stroke here. So that looks pretty good. And there's a bunch of other options here. I'm not going to play with those for now. So once I'm happy with that, I'm going to click on my selection tool so I can move it over. And I'm going to animate this into the screen. One thing I want to make sure to do, so this part is a little bit tricky, but notice right now what I have selected when I'm moving this, you can see the anchor point right here is my composition. And that's a little bit different. So my composition has like an anchor point here, but my text also has its own anchor point. So you can see the anchor point here. It has its own options down here. And we can also animate the source text. You can see there's a keyframe next to source text. We could change the text and it'll animate that as well. If I want to edit this, I can open it up and edit it here. But let's just move it. So let's go to paragraph. I'm going to center it so it's centered. And that's good enough. So, oh, whoops. I don't know what I did there. Let's reset our layout. Okay, so let's animate this. So I'm going to open the transform for this layer. And I'm just going to move the whole thing over here. So it's off screen. And I'm going to keyframe the position. And I'm going to move this a little bit up. So I want to go to where my fade is. And so I'm going to move this whole part of my composition up here. So I'm going to move this part and then my keyframe as well. And let's change this to a different color so we have different colors for our layers. Okay, so I'm going to start with the position over here, and then I'll move over 1 second, and I'm going to just move this guy back in. And the nice thing here is you can actually see where that animation is going to go. So it actually gives us a little preview of the animation. And I can also set the values just by dragging on the values in here. So if I want, I can like drag these keyframes around visually, and it's going to change how this appears. Okay, so that's part of our animation. Let's also animate the scale. So over here, I'll take the scale down to like 50 and click the clock to keyframe it. And then I'll move over here and let's move the scale back to 100. Oh, that's too far. So I can just type in here 100. And so now it's going to animate that as well. Okay. And then let's animate the rotation. So we'll start, I'll keyframe the rotation, start at 0, and then I'll move over here and I'll just rotate all the way around 360. And so the rotation bit is a little tricky because if I go to 360, it actually goes back to 0. So the way that I can fix that is by going to 359, and then I can move this keyframe over. Okay, so let's see how that looks. And then if I reset it to 360 here, I wonder if that's going to flip around again. Okay. So that looks okay. So rotation is one part where you might run into some tricky parts if you're rotating all the way around. You can't go above 360 because it's just back to 0. Okay. So that looks all right. So there's two new things that I want to do besides text. Let's pause for a second. I'm going to zoom into just this section here so we can focus on this. And so let's watch the whole thing. So we fade in, and then our text comes in. And our fade ends like right here. So maybe we actually want the text to come in a little bit sooner. So I can just grab this yellow part and move it back. And notice the keyframes move with it. So the keyframes will move with my layer if I move the layer. Okay, so if I want it to overlap, I can move this back. And there we go. And okay, another thing that you will notice, so sometimes you might be slightly off. Like let's say I want to adjust the position here. If I go to here and then I start moving the position down or whatever, notice I'm going to zoom in a little bit. But notice it actually added a new keyframe. So I wasn't exactly on the right keyframe. And so what's going to happen is it's going to do this weird like bounce thing. See how it kind of bounced up? Because I added a new keyframe when what I really meant to do was edit the keyframe I already had. So if that happens, just delete this keyframe, make sure you're on the right keyframe, and now I can move the position down. And so now you see it's not doing that weird bounce thing. So that'll happen as you get used to it. You'll add keyframes by mistake. And so if something weird is happening, just look at your keyframes and you might need to take some of them out. All right, so we're going to make a new component now. Any questions before we get into that? We're using After Effects. Everybody's good? Okay. So as we're working on our compositions, one thing that's going to be really useful is what's called a nested composition. So nested is a word that basically means one thing is inside of another. It's like birds are in a nest. And so when I make a nested composition, what I'm doing is I'm making a separate composition so that I can deal with parts of that composition by itself. And then I'm putting it into another composition where I can animate it. And so there's a good example of this where if I wanted to have like a background color on my text, a good way to do that and to animate them both at the same time is to make a separate composition. So I'm gonna lock my background, and I'm gonna hide my basic text for now, and I'm gonna make a new composition. So I'll go to compositions, right click, and oh, it won't let me. Okay. Okay, so for some reason, if I right click on the folder, I guess I can't do it there. So I'll just make new composition. And so this is my text. And I don't really need to worry about this. I'm just gonna click OK. So all the settings are the same, and I'm gonna put this inside here. But now I'm gonna put some text, and I'm also going to put a little background color. Let me see if I can actually copy my text layer. Okay, so I'm going to try to just copy my text layer. Paste. Okay, cool. So we have our text layer. I'm going to move this to the beginning because it's inside of a new composition. And I'm going to remove the keyframes. So I'm just going to click on the watch for all of these guys and just get rid of these. And let's see, where's, oh, my text is invisible. Okay, so there's my text. Let's say I also want to have like a little background. So I can click new, add a shape layer, move it below the text. How do I do that? Won't let me drag. There's got to be a way to push it down. All right, let's Google it. After Effects, move layer down. Command Option Shift up. Jesus. Okay. Command Option Shift. There we go. All right, so I'm sure there's an easier way to do that. Maybe it's under Layer. Arrange. Yeah, okay. Bring layer front, forward, back. Okay. But you can also do Command Shift up or down. So let's put a shape in here. So I'm going to grab a rectangle and put it behind here. And so now we have a shape and some text. And so if I was going to try to animate these separately, it might look kind of goofy. But if I can animate them together, it's going to be a lot easier. So this is going to be my new composition. So I'm going to leave this, and then I'm going to open my main composition again. So I can go up here, and oh, the timeline looks weird. Something is wrong with my timeline. Usually I can see the compositions both here. Oh, I can go here. Okay, so I can go to text and go to main. Okay, so now I'll drag my text composition here, and I'm going to hit Command Option Shift up to move it to the top. There's got to be an easier way to do that. How do I? Okay, layer, arrange. Okay. That's sort of weird that that's the key command, but whatever. Okay, so now let's see, can I copy my keyframes? Let's grab these keyframes and hit Command Copy, and then let's grab my text layer and paste. And so now I've pasted my animation keyframes onto this new composition. And so now it'll apply the animation to the entire composition. And so that's nice because now I'm animating both of these components at the same time, but I can also open this composition and make changes. So I can grab the shape layer and make it bigger, or smaller or whatever, or I can change the color. I can animate the color. I can do all sorts of different stuff with this. I can even add its own animation that will appear in the main composition. But then when I go back to the main composition, those changes will be input for me. Okay. So I want to look at one more thing. Any questions before we do that? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you move the main things into the text.
Oh, just drag it. So drag this text, click and drag, and throw it in there. Yeah. Okay, that's weird. Try it again, just click and drag it. Let's see. Really weird. Let's just save and quit and see if it works. You reopen it. Is it this one? This one. Okay. Let's see if it works. I don't really know what the deal is. Oh, maybe it's this. Yeah, I don't know. That's weird. I've never seen that issue. Let's troubleshoot it in a little bit. Other questions?
You said command shift down is supposed to bring the word down, but it's not doing that.
It's Command Option Shift.
Oh, command option.
Yeah. I don't know why that's. It seems like there should be another way to do it, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, and it like skips rows. Like I don't want it like all the way at the bottom. I just want it to.
Oh, it goes all the way to the top?
Yeah, it either goes all the way to the top or the bottom. I mean, I guess it's fine. It's on top of most layers. Right?
What if you just do Command Shift?
I did.
That doesn't do anything? What about just Command?
Oh yeah, just command option. Yeah.
Okay. So. Click on the clock or the stopwatch position. Okay, then move the timeline. Okay, then stop wherever you want. Then move the text over there. Okay. All right. So there's one more concept I want to look at, then hopefully we'll have some time to work in class. So there's another way to edit our keyframes. So if we stop and look at this text keyframe, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Notice how if I click on this anchor, I can move the position around, and that changes the animation. Like if I move it over here, it comes from over there. But there's also these little guys sticking out here. And these are like these change the curve of the animation. And there's a lot of like extra expression that I can get if I change these curves. So I'll use another solid as an example. It'll be a little bit easier to see. But when you're starting to make animations, remember we looked at the 12 principles of animation. And one of the things about these principles, let's look at the, oh, it's in these slides somewhere. So let's see, let's look at like this one. So notice how many little movements there are in here. And imagine making all of the keyframes to make each one of those movements. That would be pretty challenging, right? Like you'd have to time them exactly right. They're like speeding up and slowing down. There's all this stuff happening that would be really hard to manually do. But it's a lot easier to do this type of thing with curves. And so besides just using keyframes, we also have a curve editor. So I'm gonna add in another solid. So I'm gonna right click and do new, or not solid, I'm gonna do another shape layer. Okay, and I'm just gonna add, I'll do a different shape. Let's do a circle. And I'm gonna put it kind of in the middle here. And let's give it a different color. I'll make it green. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is just animate the position of this circle. So I'll make it come in from the other side. And so I'm going to open up the transform. I'm going to move this guy over here and clock the position. And then I'm going to move over to here and just move it straight across. So I'm just going to move the X position, the first number, all the way over here, like that. Okay, so if I don't change anything, it just moves in a straight line, right? It's kind of boring, right? Let's make the color a little bit darker so it stands out from the background a bit. So it's not very exciting. It's just kind of like slowly moseying across the screen. And it also doesn't really look very realistic, right? Like motion in real life doesn't just go in a linear fashion from one point to another. So how can we make this a little bit more realistic? Well, we could add in a bunch of keyframes to make it kind of like wiggle around or whatever, but that's going to take a lot of work. Another thing I can do is use the curve editor to make more natural motion. So to access the curve editor, I click on this little box up here. And they call it the graph editor. Other programs will call it the curve editor. And I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger so we can see. And so with my position, so if I highlight the position, you can see the animation right there. It's from 0 or 960 pixels, and down here it goes to negative 589 pixels. And that red line shows me the animation between the two. This green line is the Y value, or the height, and that doesn't change at all, right? Because it's just going straight across. Okay, so the red line represents the actual animation of that circle.
Sorry, where'd you go to curve editor?
It's this little button here with like a little line in it. Do you see that? Okay, so you can make an animation without using the curve editor or graph editor, but your animations are going to look a lot better if you use it. So right now it's just a straight line. It's not very exciting. So what I can do, if I click on these keyframes and right click, I can go to keyframe interpolation. And that's going to give me more control over what's happening with the keyframe. So interpolation is a big word that basically just means how are you calculating that line. So if you're just saying add 1, add 1, add 1, that's linear interpolation. So it's just going in a line. But if we use different math, we can go in a curve. So I'm going to go to keyframe interpolation, and I'm going to change this to Bezier. And Bezier basically just means a curve. And I'm going to click OK. Uh-oh, where'd it go? And I'm going to do it over here as well. So keyframe interpolation, Bezier, okay. And it's not showing me my Bezier thingies. Okay, how do I get those? Don't do that. Let's see. There must be some view thing that's not set on. Okay. All right, let's try auto Bezier. Oh, there we go. Okay. So I have to click on this like little separate dimensions thing. I guess because there's two components, the x and the y position, and now I can see these little curves. Okay, but I don't want to be editing both of them, so I want to. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I don't know why this is like not what I'm used to with After Effects, but you have to click on this little separate button, and now I can get these curves. And so it's kind of hard to read if you've never looked at something like this before, but you can see when I move these curves, I'm changing the timing. And if you watch it again, I'm going to leave this first curve relatively straight. And then this second curve, I'm going to increase dramatically. Okay, so notice what happened. It starts really, really slow, and then it gets really fast towards the end. Okay, so what's happening by using this curve, instead of just going in the straight direct line over time, you can see the curve, time is, this is time. And then the thing that's kind of confusing is that space is actually being represented vertically, even though it's going in this direction. But this is time, and so this is how much space it moves over time. So for the beginning, it's not going very far, not going very far, not going very far, and then it's going really fast. And that's how we can get more kind of like natural motion. So there's some built-in stuff here, like if I select these two keyframes. All right, click on X. Why does it keep... Can I just delete? Let's get rid of Y. Oh, no, come on. Okay, maybe if I... No, it won't let me. Okay, maybe, what does this do? Okay, so let's get rid of, there we go. Okay, so I can get rid of the Y by clicking on this little curvy guy. So now I just have the X. Okay, so there's some built-in stuff, like if I click easy ease, ease means it's gonna ease out of this keyframe. So ease means it's like slowly picking up speed. If I select this guy and change it to ease, now it's going to ease into and then out of. So it's going to get a little bit faster in the middle and then slow down again. So I could increase this effect by dragging this guy out. So it's going to start slow, get fast, and then slow down again. The colors are kind of hard to see. Let's just move this over a little bit. So I'm going to go out of the graph editor and just make this shorter. And let's move this over here a bit. Okay. Okay, that's better. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here. And there's some good tools for this. Like if I click on the zoom here and then fit to graph view, it'll fit the whole curve here. Okay, so now we can see it's speeding up and then slowing down. So it looks more natural, right? There's a more natural motion. So it's a little bit harder to edit, Let's zoom out a little bit, but you get better motion this way. And then we can also get like even more effects. So let me go into keyframe interpolation, auto Bezier. Okay. So I can actually, oh no, it won't let me drag beyond. Okay, here we go. So I can actually drag it past where the animation stops. So it's going to go a little bit beyond and then snap back into place. So I can make this really complex animation, but I only have 2 keyframes. So instead of adding like another extra keyframe beyond and then coming back, I can just play with these curves a bit to get something that looks kind of cool. So again, it's a little bit harder to edit, but you can get much more interesting effects this way. Let me see if I can do anything else. What I really want, there's some that are like, it'll do that, it'll like bounce around, but I'm not seeing. It keeps changing this back to continuous. Let's see. Easy, ease in. Linear. Okay. Edit value. I guess it doesn't have the settings that I'm used to. Let me see if there's a they move this somewhere else. I think they. Okay, I'll look into this. Maybe we'll do some more with this later, but I think this is good enough to get started. So yeah, that's the graph editor. Again, you don't have to use it. You can see my keyframes look different now because I changed. They're no longer linear keyframes. And you can actually add interpolation without going into the graph editor. So if I click, let's get a different keyframe. So if I go back to my text and click on one of these keyframes back here, and I can still, even if I'm not in the graph setting, I can go to keyframe interpolation and I can change it to Bezier. And now it's going to change the way it snaps into there. So it's kind of a subtle one because that one is doing a bunch of different stuff, but we can change the keyframes in here as well. All right. That's enough to go over for now. So let's see our whole animation that we've got. And then fade out. Okay. So I'll keep working on this on Tuesday.